Support Laneside. Get something cool.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the drill room. As always, I am, boom, the bearded beast, Rob Johnson, and I will be bringing you a little bit of fun tonight here on the drill room. As we always say, the drill room is the show that is for the bowlers, driven by the bowlers, where we try to get a little bit more interactive than we can just answering questions on YouTube. Where we take your questions, interact directly with you, and try to have some fun. So if you want to join us here, don't forget to find us here, obviously on Twitch, at Laneside Reviews. You can find us at lanesidereviews.com. That'll take you to our Facebook page. And you can look on just about any social media. If you look up hashtag TEAMLSR or Laneside Reviews, you'll be able to find us. So that's Twitch, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter. I think I said Twitter already. TikTok. Don't forget TikTok. And I think we've got Scoops on Bumble, so you might be able to find him there. But anyway, don't forget to follow us there. You can send in your questions, comments, queries, Pro Shop horror stories. You either put them on our Reddit page at r/Laneside Reviews, or you can send them to lanesidereviews@live.com. So I said we're going to have some fun tonight, and we definitely are. Tonight we're going to talk about something that's on a lot of people's minds, and that is the Open Championships. Yes, the Open Championships for 2022 have started in Las Vegas. The first teams have already made their way there. We've already seen some pretty big scores shot out there. So tonight we're going to focus a little bit on what you should take, what we think that you should do to get prepared, and some of the things that no one else tells you when you're getting ready for these events. I have to apologize if there's a little bit of noise going on near the studio here. Apparently there is a screaming family having themselves a great time. But we can move on. So, cleaning up a few things from the last few weeks, we have not been contacted by our 50 viewer contest winner. They just haven't contacted us. I've messaged, I've tried getting them on Twitter or on Twitch. Nobody's contacted us. So I guess we're just gonna have to give it out again. So next week we are going to put it back out. And since we hit that golden 75 followers, somebody's gonna get it. Except Scoops. No Scoops. He can't win it again. So let's see how we're doing out there tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us and watching. So we're going to jump into things pretty quickly tonight because we got a lot to cover. We're going to talk about singles and doubles. We're going to talk about some things that you should be looking for during the singles and doubles. We're going to talk about some of the things that you'll see that are different between singles and doubles and teams. We're going to get into some of the pieces in your arsenal that you should bring. We're going to give you a really good rundown of some pieces that have been very popular. And we're going to tell you some of the things that no one else tells you. So we're going to go into the things that go into getting ready for a big tournament, or when you're at a big tournament like this, that people don't often talk about, that are, I find, as important as, really anything else other than the actual bowling itself. So let's jump into singles and doubles. So over the past few years, the singles and doubles have been, pretty similar year to year. They usually range between 39 and 43 feet. Usually we'll see one pattern shorter than the other. They usually run between 24 and 27 mils of oil. When we're playing in the stadium, which is the top part of South Point, even though that center has had a couple of Open Championships, it's had a few tournaments, it's still relatively new. It doesn't have a track built into it. Not at least what you would consider a track compared to what you generally see at home. So the lanes are going to play a little bit slicker on top of what we're seeing from the lane pattern. Now, one of the things that people often forget when we go to these large events, when you're bowling on a sport pattern of this type, is the number one rule. I think number one rule, and that's controlling the pocket. When you're in these events, especially when you see a lot of friction down lane, really good back ends, but a lot of oil up front, especially as flat as these patterns are going to be, you'll see a lot of hook down lane. So often, the first thing I tell people to pack in their bag is some slower pieces. Some big asymmetrics, solids, big, strong cores that are slow. They do lots of energy, use up lots of energy in the front part of the lane, not a lot of energy left down lane, so they don't hook a lot. For some people, this might also be a urethane ball. But it would have to be one of the stronger ones, like a UC3 or a Pink Widow, because you would definitely want something that is going to get into a roll. A lot of people don't realize these changes come very quickly, so you're only going to get about maybe a game right out of the gate with some of these pieces, such as your big asym. But they're there to create friction for you later in the block. So these are very important pieces. They tend to have lots of surface on them to get them to slow down and to use up as much energy as possible. From there, we tend to make sure that our equipment, for singles and doubles at least, we have something benchmarky in there. We're going to get into more specifics in a few minutes, but just going into, if you've looked at our good old arsenal sheet, you'll know that, 39 to 43 feet sits right in that medium pattern length. But the oil can get to medium long. So when we're looking at building our arsenals, you can look on here. We have some ideas here, strong asymmetrics, generally strong asymmetrics for the speed dominance, or a solid symmetric or solid asymmetric that they can put in that area for the for the matched player, and usually a large symmetrical or a large asymmetrical that's been drilled to get some of the differential out, so it'll roll up a little slower. So examples of that, say for your speed dominant player, you might have some layout, something like a Quantum Evo, but you might have a very slow response layout on it. 50 by 5 by 75, 40 by 5 by 75, something that's going to use up some energy in the front, lay off down back. For symmetricals, I really like, we're going to get into this in a minute, so just give me a minute to get through this. So once we've been through those big asymmetrics and the smoother symmetrics, you have to be aware that they're going to transition. Using all this surface and all these big pieces are going to make a big friction spot. It's going to excuse me. It's going to reveal some friction. So you want to make sure that you have, and this is interesting, you want to make sure you have some pearls with you. Now, normally, if you look at our arsenal construction sheet, our ball up, we'd be looking at hybrids, so that we can have a little bit more versatility when changing surface. But in this circumstance, because we know what the lane patterns are going to be like, and we know roughly how they've played in the past, we know that having something that's going to be very clean, be able to get through those friction spots that you're going to burn up, that's going to allow you to stay on top of where you are, stay in the same place as long as possible. Those are going to be more important than having a ball that you can make either stronger or weaker. We already have some strong options with us, and when we go into this, I'll show you exactly what we have. We need some pearls that are going to get down lane, so we're going to want to ball up something that's going to be nice and clean but reactive, but it doesn't have to be super reactive down lane. We want something that's going to hook. It's going to have a short hook window, but we don't want something that's going to just jerk left if you're a right-hander, right if you're a left-hander. Like your league balls, we want something that's going to be controllable when it makes its move. We're also going to need, of course, a late hook and a burn ball. You're going to be bowling right on top of the same shots for such a long time. When we blow this friction open, you're definitely going to have to get left. You're going to have to be able to open up the lane a little bit. You're going to have to be able to get the ball to that friction point, as we said, playing on top of the friction. And something that's actually interesting is in the doubles, you actually want to make sure that you stay in those big ASIMs as long as possible, because you're setting up your lanes for singles. So you actually want to try to use those bigger pieces as long as possible so you can create friction that you can bounce it off of. Remember, this is a very flat pattern, so you have to create your friction. There's no defined friction left to right. We have to create it. Here we go. Obsession Tour Pearl. Yeah, I like that ball. Also, for those of you, I forgot to say this before, for those of you who have joined up and got yourself a membership, either, I guess, subscribed or grabbed one of the tiered things or sent bits, there are some brand new emoticons, GIFs, and all sorts of stuff in the chat now that you can play with. Whole bunch of really cool new stuff. I have to get all of the things for them, so I'll get those for you a little bit later. We'll play with them when we go to questions. But I just wanted to point that out because I saw a love it there from one of our awesome fans. So now we're done with singles and doubles. Brief talk about singles and doubles. We're going to talk about team play. And the reason we're going over this a little bit, and then we're going to go back to it, is there's a lot of information. So this is kind of just an overview. For team play, there is a lot more hook. Always tends to hook more for teams than it does for singles doubles. You also have a better opportunity to make the lane the way you want it. This is one of those times where we talk about going in with your team and quote-unquote setting up a lane. This is where you take your practice and you all play in one zone, or you make sure that you're all playing relatively close together so that you can all work together to break the lane down, to create and reveal that friction so that you can all score higher by working together. In your singles and doubles, you don't really have that opportunity because usually you're paired with other people, or you can't really make that unless you can sit down with the people you're bowling with and make a game plan. You don't have this opportunity. And I'm saying this right now, that if you are nice and you sit down with the person that you're going to be bowling singles and doubles with, and they are of any kind of ability, and you explain to them that you would like to work with them to break the lane down in singles and doubles, most professionals or people who are bowling for money, who want to get the best scores, will actually listen to you. This is one of those weird tournaments that even though you're competing against someone else, you can help each other if you're smart, and everybody makes money. So don't be afraid to talk to the people on your lanes. So in the team play, as opposed to singles and doubles, where we stay in those big, strong ASIMs for a long time, in team play we actually tend to make much faster changes and get to our weaker equipment much faster, because we're all working together to create friction points on the lane to try to blow it open. It happens much faster. And it should happen very quickly because everyone on the team should be playing in about the same area. And this is our first plan point. The team that you are going with, I know it's a lot of fun to go down, and if you're just going down to bowl and you don't care if you win, you love to win, but you don't care if you win, go to town, have a great time. Far be it from me to take that away from you. If, however, you are going down there to play for money, you're trying to win, 1, practice with your team. get on the lanes and break a lane down together. It doesn't matter the lane condition. In fact, the longer the lane condition, probably the better. But working together to break that lane down together and coming up with your strategy will help you. You don't have a lot of time. You are on a time crunch, a very allotted time frame now, especially with the Open Championships. So you have to make these decisions quickly. You have to have this plan going in. So take the time to get on the lanes with your team in advance. Talk about your arsenals and talk about how you're going to break the teams down or break the lanes down. Talk with your doubles partner about how you're going to break the lanes down. Even though there'll be another team or two on the lanes with you, they may not want to work with you. You still have to bowl. So you got to work together to break those lanes down. Now in the team event, because you guys are bowling together, you athletes, you're staying on top of that friction a lot. You're going to see the oil transition much faster. You're not going to have 2-3 frames to make choices. When you go up there and commit to the changes that you are making along the way, you have to commit and do it. Which brings us to plan point number 2. Bring a journal. Bring a journal. Bring a journal. Or a book. I cannot stress this enough. There's a lot going on. You may be tired. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of lights. It is very distracting. It is very easy to lose your concentration. It's very easy to lose your place on the lanes. I tell all of my bowlers whenever they're bowling, anyone I work with on the national team, to always have their journal with them. For one thing, you can take notes on bowling centers that you may not go to a lot, so you can have notes for topography. But more importantly, you can write down what you're seeing. Not just your bowling, but the other people that are on the lanes. You can track, and people don't think about this. I don't know why. You can track not just where you're playing, but where the other people on your lane are playing. You can write down their moves if you're watching. If you have someone on your lanes that's bowling well, take note of what they're doing. Write it down. It may be outside. You may not be able to have that same skill set, but if they're making moves, there's a good chance that you also have to make a move. So this way you can track what you've done and what you are doing in real time. We talk about that little cheat sheet to keep your mind on the game when you're burning out. Your journal does the same thing. At any time, you can go back to and look to it and see the progressions you've made, see ball changes you've made, and you can go back and reevaluate what you're doing to make sure that your mind is in the right spot. Now, we talked about a little bit about with these balls ups, you don't really want that whippy action. A lot of league bowlers, because we have so much oil in the middle, they're tapered patterns, so there's more oil in the middle, less on the outsides, and they taper long ways as well, to lots of oil in the front to very little at the back. It makes the reaction much easier. It gives it training wheels. When you have free friction to the outside and you throw at it, it's going to hook. You don't have that here. The back ends. Every single time the lanes are oiled at the stadium, they do a max strip, and then they're left to sit, which means you are going to have the hottest, fastest, freshest back ends that you possibly can right off the bat. You got to be prepared for that. Excuse me. So taking your whippiest piece, your everything's at 3.5 inch pin to pap with a 20-degree valve angle, probably not going to be your best choice, because when something that's max flare and fastest response to friction sees the fastest back ends, you almost see sparks coming off that thing's butt. Just yeah. Well, that might make a good gift too. So you want to make sure that your surface meets your surface preparation and your cover stock meets what we're going to be playing on. Because if you start playing those super whippy pieces, well, it turns 9 counts into 4 and 5 counts. You think about it, the difference between a 9-pin or a 4-pin and a Greek church or a big 4, a couple boards. So if that ball just happens to be a little bit responsive or extra responsive, there goes your frame. In teams, just in general in this tournament, but especially in teams, 4 pins and 9 pins are way better than splits. Okay, you're going to get lots of angle of entry. You're going to make sure that the ball isn't going to overhook. And with the kind of, just as a side note, with the kind of angle of entry that you can create with these kind of backends and with this equipment, you would almost, I would be curious to see how lining up light on the pocket would look. Now, I know people love to hit flush, but in this circumstance, because of the way the back ends are, because of the way they're going to transition so quickly, if you miss it, if you tug it in and you're lined up light, you're going to flush it. But if you throw it to light, the National Stadium has new pins, great kickbacks, new curtains, pins fly. You can actually you can increase the size of your pocket, basically. Rather than having 1.5 boards to stuff in the pocket, you can get 3-4 boards at a time. If you look at that cheat sheet, call it how big is your pocket? Where's your 4-pin going? Or where's your 6-pin going? Where's your 9-pin going? Where's your 4 and your 7-pin going? How light can you hit and still carry? How heavy can you hit and still carry? This is exactly when you want to know. Tournament like this, that light carry serves you better simply because if you make a bad shot, okay, think about it this way. You make a bad shot and you're flush, you're lined up flush, and you throw it right. You're going through the 3-pin and you're probably going to wash out. You go high, you're going through the nose, you're probably big 4. If you're lined up light, if you tug it, you go flush. If you throw it right, you go into the 3-6-10. So at least you leave yourself something spareable. Which brings up another plan point. What is the most important ball in your bag? Anybody know? Anybody got an idea what the most important ball in your bag is? It's the most important ball in this tournament. It's your spare ball. Make sure your spare ball fits. Make sure the surface is good. Make sure you make your damn spares. I cannot be... That is how important it is. Make your damn spares. Because in an event like this, everybody's like, oh, you know, this guy shot 800, this guy shot 750, 770, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be real with you right now. If you shoot 650 in your singles, doubles, and teams, you're probably taking home money at this point. Teammate bagger, yes! I once, in my youth, I once threw, I think it was 8 or 9 strikes in a game, and just barely broke 220. Drinking that Kevinade, yeah. I know. I'm getting all angry and gurry and cursy. Next thing you know, I'm gonna pull a high diddly ho out here, and I'm gonna go all Ned Flanders on you. 8. That's right. Scoops knows 8. So your spare ball is going to be extremely important. There are 2 tips I would have for you if you have a good relationship with your bowling center, and they're willing to do this for you. Oil a lane basically to the head pin, and then strip a lane dry. Work on your 6s and your 10s, and your 7s and your 4s. Any tips on your very first spare ball? Plastic. Really any of the plastic ones, the T-Zones, the Maxims, what is the Storm one? I think it's the Ice. Anything plastic is great for your spare ball. If you're looking at bowling, T-Zones, white dots, mixes. I think the mix is actually part urethane, part plastic. It's actually a hybrid. If you're looking for something that has dual purpose, the Spy from Radical has a big old core in it, same as the Black Widow spare, and the Taboo spare had cores in them. But 100% anything plastic if you're looking for a spare ball. I usually recommend that unless you are limited on space or you're a tournament bowler, in which case I'd say work on your urethane. See if you can throw urethane at your spares. So the name of the game for both events is going to be making predictable choices. Predictable. Every shot you want to know that you're going to be able to, you know that you're trying your best, and it's not just trying your best, but you are actively planning to leave the least amount of pins on the deck, whether you strike or spare. How weight block would be ideal? So the weight block inside, it just gives it a little bit more hitting power. So if you're looking to throw it for strikes on dry lanes, or if you have a lot of multi-pin spares, it will drive through the pins a little bit better than a regular plastic ball that has no core in it. It just gives it a little bit more dynamics to it. Deviate, just black spare ball. Yep. There's also the Crown Jewel. Beautiful, the Munson Crown Jewel from Brunswick. But here is a very, very important tip that we learned this year. If you're buying a plastic ball from the Brunswick family and it has the gold sparkle in it, be prepared that it's going to hook. Not the Crown Jewel, because it has a layer of urethane on top, but ones like the green, white, black spare ball from Deviate. It has a gold sparkle in it, and it is very reminiscent of the gold sparkle that we're now seeing in things like the Conspiracy Scheme and the Knockout Black Blue, and it hooks a lot. I think they actually have that gold sparkle in the Spy as well, and it can hook 2 to 3 boards more than a spare ball of similar cover stock. My main ball is 15 pounds. I'm wondering if I should go get a... You should always make sure your spare ball is the same weight as your strike ball. You want everything in your swing to feel exactly the same, no matter what type of shot you're throwing. By going down to a lighter weight, you can throw all your timing off, and that'll make it more difficult for you. Now, though we're making predictable choices, these choices come fast. There will come points in the team where you may make a move a game, or move a frame. Like one board, 1 and 1, 2 and 1. They come fast because you're bowling on top of each other. You're creating that friction. If your team doesn't do this, what happens is you end up with friction streaks in the lane. So if you get somebody playing outside and somebody playing inside, say somebody playing up 10 and somebody playing over 4th arrow. Well, when that person from 10 starts to move in, they're moving into friction rather than into shim. They have no oil to keep the ball going. That person who's playing 4 has nowhere to go, because the deeper they get, those lanes aren't going to allow you to open them up that quickly, that deep. So you're going to end up running out of room. So you need to work together. Just strike every time. Yeah, that's true. Just strike every time. I know somebody shot like an 820 something a couple of days ago. That worked for them. Nate Diggity. Good name. Time to regulate. Heck yeah. Thanks for all the tips. No problem. Then you win the eagle. That's right. So, last thing I'm going to say, and this is one of those things that people don't tell you. Make sure, before we get into our arsenal, make sure that one of the balls that you're bringing with you is your safety ball. A lot of people don't understand this concept, but I want you to think about all the bowling balls that you've ever thrown and all the bowling balls you've ever owned. And there will be one that sticks out in your mind that is just that one, that fit perfectly. You always know what it does. You can always manipulate it. It is your trusted go-to ball whenever you're just confused. You are going to be confused, so you want that ball with you. Yes, for Scoops, it's the Forza. He literally has 2 of them because he knows exactly what that ball does. And here's a side note for you. If you ever see Scoops without a Forza in his bag, just go up to him and tap him on the shoulder and tell him you shouldn't have taken the Forza out of your bag. Because he'll just look at you and go, yeah, I know. My best 227. Got to work on some of my open frames. Yeah, Ricky. The easiest way, the fastest way to raise your average and to bowl better, even at tournaments, is to make your spares. You think about it, if you make 9 spare your entire game, you shoot 190. That's without ever having to strike. So you can do it. Just make sure you make your spares. Leave stuff that's spareable and make your spares. Surface. Let's talk a little bit about surface before we get in the actual arsenals themselves, because we're going to look at some bowling balls. Surface is going to be key. What I suggest to people is set your surfaces before you leave for the tournament and bring pads. There are going to be times when you get to the lanes, different people, where the surface that you first prepared with is not going to match up with the lanes or the lane pattern. But if you've already set them to a generalization of about where they need to be, it's a lot easier to make a quick one pad change than it is to do 2 or 3 steps for every ball. And if you go back to that nice arsenal construction sheet, all of those surfaces are listed on there, nice and easy for you. And let's talk about this for a second here. You can see all my notes all over it. I got some questions from people saying, hey, this is great, but how does this work for everybody? What about tilt? What about blah, blah, this, that, and the other thing? I want to remind everyone this is a baseline. This is where you start from, and then you can make adjustments based on extreme cases. For the most part, this is going to match up with a lot of bowlers. Your super low tilt bowlers going to have to make some pin to pap changes. You might have to look at some different layouts for your slow response stuff. We'll get into that in a minute. But surface is going to be key. And there's a really easy way to find out before you even step on the lanes if your surfaces are going to match up. I recommend going in and talking to the pro shops, because you'll see a whole bunch of shops set up outside of the bowling area. Go and meet the shop owners. Ask them what's working, what equipment's working, what equipment's not working, what surfaces they've seen working. Ask them if they know what the high person who threw, the person who's leading the events. Ask them if they know what they were throwing. Give yourself some insight before you get on the lanes. You may have to spend a little bit of money with these guys, buy a pad, buy some grips, buy a shirt. When you give them a little bit of money, blah, 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 blah. They love to talk. Because lots of people go in and just look around and don't buy anything. And those guys get really bored. So if you are nice to them and talk to them and maybe bring them a coffee or something, you can get all sorts of free information. And that information is always good information. Lastly, be open-minded. we can talk about, you notice that I didn't actually bring out any patterns. Everybody always brings out a pattern and says, you know, look at this pattern, look at all this information. People get too wrapped up in pattern sheets. Yes, take a look to see the length. You want to see how many units there are of oil. You want to see the ratio, if it's going to be flat or not. But other than that, you still got to bowl on what you see. That pattern only exists basically through practice. Once you guys start bowling on it, that pattern gets torn apart based on how you break it down. So remember that even though there are some preconceived notions that you're going to go in with, be aware that at any time, everything that you've prepared for is going to go wrong. What do they say, Murphy's Law? If it could go wrong, it will. If you take the time to be open-minded, ask questions, gather information, and go in with some good pieces of equipment, you can minimize the amount of things that can go wrong. Things still can go wrong. But if we minimize and mitigate the risk, we got a good chance to win. So let's talk equipment. I'm gonna switch over here. We're gonna go over to the ball wall. We're gonna talk some equipment. So I can't see your questions right away, so once we do this, I'll rush back over and I'll answer any questions that you have. I've brought my arsenal sheet with me. Boop. Ooh, and don't you like this jacket? This is my official Team Canada jacket. Pretty nice, right? This is what happens when you return to Team Canada for another 2 years. Just a little. I don't have a horn, so. Anyway, so let's talk about our arsenal choices. Right off the bat, singles and doubles, we talked about having smoother equipment, strong equipment. We talked about slow response, something that you can keep in front of you. So right off the bat, if you look at our fresh, the very top column here, you'll see that pretty much everyone for medium is looking at, well, sorry, for long they're looking at asymmetrical. I would say that every single person who's going there should go with a big asymmetrical, then our medium ball, what we would call our benchmark, our ball up, our late hook, our burn, and then our spare ball, of course. So for fresh, for you, well, pretty much everyone on the fresh, we're going to be looking at layouts such as 50 by 5 by 75 for our benchmark balls, which would be something like a, even though it's a little bigger numbers on it, phase 2, the Phantom, things like the Obsession Tour Solid, one of my favorites. That's my benchmark ball. For our heavy oil ball, everyone's going to be in a little faster response layout. So we talk about fast and slow response. Other people call them pin up and pin down. But that never really works right, simply because not everyone's pin down is down. Not everyone's pin down is below the fingers. For us low tilt bowlers, our pin down balls tend to be the pin beside the fingers. Much like my, give me 1 second here, much like my favorite ball, well, one of my 2 favorite balls, not my Intel, but everyone's seen this before in our reviews, our bonus. And you'll see here, this is my pin down layout. Okay? So for me, the pin is beside the fingers. This is my slowest response layout. It's not short pin. This is actually a 3-inch pin. But because of where my track is, slow response is here. For others, slow response will be below the fingers. So just be aware of that when we talk about slow response layouts and fast response layouts. Fast response layouts tend to be above the bridge and higher. Okay, so anywhere in this area. Could they be over here? Yep. I've had a guy who's had a pin up who was way over here because of the way he rolled the ball. And look where those fingers are. So, big ASIMs to break the lane down early in practice. Defender, Quantum Evo Solid. That thing is great. One that I think is going to, I might see a lot of play. The new Speed from Columbia 300. That ball is, I mean, the review is going to be coming out shortly. Very early. Very smooth, lots of hooking power. It might be one of the strongest ASIMs, like slow response ASIMs, that I've ever thrown. It is a really strong hooking ball. One of the parts in the video, Scoops will attest to this. We were testing things out, and I was lofting the gutter over 7th arrow out to the 10 board and striking with it. Like, it was that strong. So big stuff like that. For you people who aren't Brunswick family, things like the Reality Solid, the Proton Physics, those two would be great choices. And I think if you look it up, a lot people have been having success with those already this year, as well as the Quantum Evo Solid has seen a lot of play this year already. So we've gone through our big ASIM, which is slow response with a slower response layout, so potentially pin down. We've gone through our benchmark ball, which is our control ball. So for those, we look at Phase 2, Obsession Tour, Web Tour. Boy, a lot of those tour ones. Things that are going to be, as it says on the sheet, controllable. With the Obsession Tour and the Web Tour, they are much lower core numbers, but a bit stronger cover. So you just want something that's going to be controlled, as we said, keep the ball in front of you, leave things that you can spare. This is where it gets fun. The ball up. So traditionally in this spot, if you look at this sheet, as we said, we've used an asymmetric hybrid because that gave us the ability to put some surface on it to make it act more like a solid, or shine it up to have it work more like a pearl. In this case, we know we're going to need a pearl. The lanes have not changed much in the last 5-6 years in the patterns they put out. They've gotten good scores and they've gotten good results. And from what we've seen this year in talking to people who've bowled, they're pretty much the same again. So, we talked about balls that are going to be more controllable, maybe a little less whippy. So where we might see those huge intermediate differential numbers, we might want to look at some medium ones. So for myself, I like the Black Widow Ghost, as well as the new 3D Offset. Both pearls, both you can put surface on, they react really well. They're very strong, but those cores lean a little more symmetrical than asymmetrical even after drilling. So they're going to be more controllable. They're going to get through the pins just a little bit deeper. We don't want the ball to roll forward too much, especially on these patterns when they get dry. Like on the team pattern, when they dry out, you're going to want a ball that gets to the spot and hooks, but doesn't just fly forward. So I find the Ghost a little bit stronger than the 3D Offset when you put some surface on it. The 3D Offset has an intermediate differential of 0.008 as opposed to 0.015. So it's got double the double the potential intermediate differential, so it's going to have a much smaller hook window. I would wager we're probably going to see a really big score out of the 3D offset at this event this year. I have a feeling that ball is going to match up with the Open Championships very well. For those of you who don't throw the Brunswick families, you can look at the UFO alert. That one, in talking to a lot of my friends who are Storm staffers who are going to nationals, that ball, even though it's a hybrid, it's on their list because it is just a different piece for them. It's one of those, like the 3D offset is a special piece for the Brunswick family. The UFO alert is a special piece for the 900 family. Altered reality, the Pearl version of the reality. The Phase 4, I've seen a lot of people talking about taking that. I would probably lean, I think the dark horse, I would actually look, if you're a Storm roto bowler, I'd be looking at the Dark Code. Even though it has a higher intermediate differential, it's a little smoother. That cover stock and that core is a little bit smoother. So it will match up to the lanes just a little bit better than what we've seen from some of the other pearls from those lines. Late hook. People have been asking me what late hook means. It means it hooks late. If you compare it to your ball up, it's going to go 3 to 6 feet longer, which we're creating with our surface. And because that's not going to have as much time to hook, so it's going to look like it hooks less. We're going to set the core dynamics up to make sure that the ball doesn't spin up too early because there's so much friction. So we're going to use higher RG. You can see on the list here we use 2.52 plus. And there are a lot of good choices in this category. This ball is going to be very important. For the Brunswick family, we are looking at the new Eruption, or perhaps, I don't have it here on my wall, the Raw Pearl, the Scorpion, another one from Hammer. You could even go with the Brunswick Stellar, but I would probably be more inclined to drill the fingers deeper because it is a little higher differential ball. I'd probably drill a little bit of the differential out just to make it safer. But that could also be a good choice for you. That's going to be a ball that when your ball up is either too whippy or is just too early, that you go to, and it's going to give you that length to stay on top of the friction longer. Then the burn ball. This is when the lanes are fried. You probably won't need this during singles and doubles. You will almost definitely need this during teams. And this is your least hooking, longest, hardest to rev up ball. The ball that you probably never play in league, but it's going to bail you out. And we're talking about things like, this is an older one, but the Nitrous or the Turbo R from Ebonite. Looking at things like the Beast from Columbia 300, the Tempo. I got one of those guys over here. The Tempo from Track, the one that looks like the Synergy. Even the High Road as a hybrid, or the High Road Pearl, fits into this category. And this is something that, like I said, it doesn't spin up easily through core dynamics, so it's going to be able to get through that friction before it hooks. It's going to get down lane. Now you'll notice we haven't talked a lot about urethane, and we haven't talked about your spare ball, where it fits in here yet. And this is going to be an interesting one. For those of you who have a lot of concern over being able to control the back end of the lanes, you may want to think about this. Instead of a big asymmetric, in that front spot, you could look at something like a UC3 or a Black Widow Pink or Black Widow Purple with a strong layout and lots of surface.
Don't be afraid to go down to 500. Don't be afraid to go to 360. I've gone to 220 before. Don't be afraid to go with lots of surface. The point is not that this ball is going to swing the whole lane. It's going to get into a roll and get into the pocket. That's all you want, is the ball to roll and slow down in this oil. Similarly, when we're talking about spare balls, if you are confident in your spare shooting, you might consider, instead of bringing a plastic ball with you, bringing something like a purple hammer. One, you can change the surface on it, so it's not going to hook as much. Two, it gives you another option in your bag. You think about if we're using a Black Widow for our big ASIM, something like a purple hammer could either sit in our, as I said, in our spare spot, or you could even use it as another benchmark ball, because it's going to have a different motion than the benchmark balls we've suggested. It's still going to be very controlled, but it's going to be a much different motion. And the idea is to have as many motions that you can create so that you can cover the widest amount of conditions that you could possibly see. That's why you get 6 balls. You want to make sure you can bowl on everything. Now, I like the purple hammer as a spare ball. If you've got a low or a high enough surface on it that it's not going to dig in too much. So on singles and doubles, maybe 1,000, 2,000 maybe. You could even shine it if you wanted to. Heck, hit it with take it all the way up with the CTD pads, including the P5D pad, and then put some True Cut polish on it. True Cut polish will shine urethane if you want to put a shine on it, if you want to use it as your spare ball. But make sure that when you change events, you change the surface again. You don't want to accidentally walk into the team event, go to throw a spare, and have your purple hammer hook a whole bunch. So you got to be confident with the type of roll you're using and really how you shoot your spares. Now, little side tip here for you: if you are going, really make sure that you've worked on your hand positions. You think I've used a lot of keywords here that should stand out for you, like when you get on lanes first, there is no defined friction. But as you break them down, you find defined friction points. It is a very flat pattern. So that should give you an idea in your cheat sheet what kind of hand positions you should be using to control the lane. You will find that you'll use a lot of, you'll use a lot of non-rotation hand positions because you want the ball to dig in more. You want it to roll more than skid. As you go onto the later blocks, you're going to want to be able to get around it to get the ball to get through the friction before it hooks. So, what would I bring? If I were to go right now to the USBC Open Championships, what would I be bowling? That's really easy. I'd be taking a speed with me as my slow response big ASIM. I'd take my Obsession Tour Solid as my benchmark. It is, of course, 50 by 5 by 75, so it is a slow response layout on it. For my ball up, I would probably bring my 3D offset. Being that I have very low tilt, I'm not going to generally try to swing this lane a lot early. That ball up is going to be there specifically to take advantage of the friction in game 2 and 3 of the first set to open that lane up a little bit. But I'm still going to be on top of that friction pretty hard. So 3D offset, probably going to be my choice over the Black Widow. Not because it's a better ball, but just because I can control it. I know I'm not going to leave a lot of big fours with it as they start to break open. For my late hook ball, that one's a little tougher. I would probably drill something new for myself. Right now I have a Night Prowler that I'm throwing for my late hook ball, and while I like it, I would probably drill myself a raw pearl. The core is a little bit more dynamic, just in my experience. The cover stock is just a little bit cleaner and a little bit more responsive, so it just gives you just an upgrade. So that's what I would throw, probably the raw pearl. If I was throwing Storm, probably the Hustle Camo here. I'm not going to go through all the Storm stuff that you could or couldn't take, but from talking to somebody today who was at the USBC Championships, I know that that ball is seeing a fair amount of space in bags. So I'm just throwing it out there for you guys as some extra information. For my burn ball, I have a Track Tour Sick right now that I really like. It is it's a much older ball. I would probably drill myself something new. I'd probably drill either a Track Tempo, probably a Track Tempo or a Beast, but probably the Track Tempo first. Bit of a bigger core in it, just size-wise. The cover stock's a little bit more reactive. I've had some really good experience with that ball. I would consider the Tempo somewhat of a safety ball for me. So that would be my choice there. And then for my spare ball, I would probably bring with me I would probably bring my blue hammer with me. Not a lot of people have seen me throw that. Either my blue hammer or my Spy. I can shoot spares with my blue hammer pretty easily. I can also throw it as another ball. It would fit in just underneath my benchmark ball. But it does have some hooks. That's why I might go with my Spy, because it also has some use if you put some surface on it. But that would be, I think that would be it. Yeah, so a speed, an Obsession Tour solid, my 3D offset, hammer raw, and a Tempo. If I was sending scoops, I'd probably change his benchmark ball into a Pink Widow for my matched player. If I was sending Old Guy Wayne, I would probably go, my benchmark ball, I would actually probably go with something, either a Black Widow or a Knockout. Because his speed is higher and his rev rate is lower, he's going to need a little stronger benchmark, and we can tailor it a little bit with surface to match it up. So that's about it for equipment. Let me see if there were any questions back here. I'm going to come back over to the computer.
There I am. Canadians have horns. I knew it. Oh, yeah, I know. So now is my favorite part of this little discussion. And it's called Stuff No One Tells You About at the Open Championship. This might be one of my favorite parts. Because this is the stuff that you can screw up before you ever get up on the lanes and nobody ever tells you, and it can actually help you a ton. Rule number 1, sleep. Vegas is awesome. I've been there 8 times. I love it. There's lots of stuff going on all the time. There will be time to do stuff. Make sure you get sleep before you bowl. It's not that hard. If you're bowling an afternoon or an evening block, take a nap before you go. It is a grueling set of bowling done in a very at a speed that you'll probably not be used to. So make sure you have as much energy as you can. From a little side note from that, a lot of people don't realize that when you go to Vegas and you stay on one of the hotels, they pump oxygen into all the rooms, pure oxygen. The offset of that is that you require less sleep generally, and you become more awake easily so that you can go and gamble and game more. It also happens to make you a little bit more irritable and irrational. So if you have an opportunity to have a nap, take it. And if you have an opportunity to take it safely outside where no one's going to knife you or steal all your stuff, like in your car or something like that, it's good for you. Food. Food is going to be key for your event. There are lots of really important things out there that you can look up that'll tell you how to eat while you're away. I'm going to give you the cliff notes. 1, pre and post bowling. Don't be a carnivore. Don't fill up on nothing but proteins and meats. It's going to sap you of energy. It's going to make you logy. It's not going to be good for your bowling. You want to make sure you have a nice balanced meal. You want carbs. You want some fats. Make sure that the food that you are eating is not too gassy or greasy. You don't necessarily want to be, doing drive-bys and stinking up the place while you're trying to bowl. You also don't have the time to go take a gigantic poop if you've got the runs or something from eating gross food. So, eat safe food. Carbs are important. You're going to expend a lot of energy while you're bowling, so carbs during bowling. Snacks, trail mix, nuts, raisins, cranberries, stuff that gives you natural sugars. It's going to keep you energized. It's going to keep you going. Drinks, waters, not sugary drinks, not alcohol, I'm sorry. Yes, limit your fast foods, limit your pop, carbonated drinks, things like that. Sugary, high fructose drinks, they're going to actually sap your energy and make it more difficult for you to bowl. Find a grocery store. It sounds weird. I do this all the time. Vegas is expensive to eat. Very expensive in some places. It can also be hard to, depending on the time of year, to find seating in a good amount of time to get a meal in a good amount of time. There are also no grocery stores on the Strip in Vegas. So I highly recommend taking the time to buy yourself, get food, ground transportation, find a grocery store, buy yourself breakfast, buy yourself snacks, things like that. Take them back to your hotel. You could request to have a fridge in your room a fridge that you don't have to pay for, like the special minibar fridges and stuff. You can get just a regular fridge for your room to store your stuff. It'll save you a bunch of money. Make sure that you buy watery fruits. Watermelons, strawberries, things like that. By eating lots of those, you will help keep your body from swelling up. A lot of people go to the Open Championships and they get there and suddenly none of their equipment fits because their hands swell up from what they've been eating and the dry desert heat and the increased sunlight and so on and so forth, and your hand swells up and suddenly you can't get out of the ball well. Just doing something for yourself nice, like eating watery fruits, will help keep that from happening. Lowering your salt intake will also help keep that from happening. And trust me, you don't want your thumb to bust open in game 2 of doubles when you've got all more bowling to go. So, SNT, you going to do a review on the Radical Spy soon? Yes. We're working on it. It's a-coming. Having said that about food, the South Point Buffet. There's one by the escalators that you'll use to get up to the stadium. It's about, I think it's like $3.99 or $4.99 breakfast and $6.99 lunch. Oh, it's so good. And they do have some healthy options there if you keep your eyes open. Don't just go for the ridiculous spare ribs. They do have some good options there, and it is inexpensive. The old strip versus the new strip versus everything in between. While you're there, not everyone takes the time to travel the entire strip, to check out Old Vegas, to check out New Vegas, to check out everything in between. A couple of tips for you to make it a little bit more enjoyable. There is a shuttle that you can catch at Mandalay Bay that will take you from the new strip to South Point. It's $8. It's all day back and forth access. You can also get a weekly pass. Invest in it if you're on the new strip or the old strip. It'll save you a ton of time moving around. You can leave your equipment in the paddock at South Point, and that shuttle will actually take you all over the new strip. It'll take you to all the casinos. There's also a monorail. It does not go to South Point. It only goes from the new strip to the old strip. So don't get on the monorail expecting to get to South Point. Yes, Scoops, it was awesome and yummy. And it worked great. Okay, side story here. I'm at the World Series of Bowling in 2013, and Scoops, and soon-to-be Mrs. Scoops, come out to watch. And poor Scoops, we took him on an adventure. I don't drink. I can't because of a medication that I'm on. But Scoops, we fed him so many yard arms of so many different types of alcohols. It was wonderful. Sometime you should ask him about the Elvis that he had in his mouth. It's a good story. Fallout 4 New Vegas, yep. Yeah, they... Don't talk about guns in Vegas. They've had bad history. Taxis. There'll be lots of taxis around offering to take you places. If you're going to take one, make sure you know the route you're going to take. Vegas taxis are notorious for running up their fares. They can do laps around the place and you'll never know that you're going the wrong direction. Don't let them take advantage of you. If you want to, you can map quest and make sure that they're not going to run up your charge, because they will. Shows. If you're going to be there for a few days, do yourself a favor and take in some shows. Don't limit yourself to ones that are just on the new strip. I highly recommend going to the Rio and seeing Penn and Teller. They just redid the theater. It's a gorgeous dinner interactive experience. Some other shows suggestions. The Tournament of Kings, the medieval knights. It's okay. For the price, the food's the entertainment's pretty good. But it's long and it's meh. All of the Cirque du Soleil shows are worth going to, but they're expensive. I highly recommend the MJ Special or Ka. Great shows, like fabulously mind-bending shows. But you're going to pay for them. Speaking of that, all across the entire strip are these little huts and little places inside of hotels that sell off discount and last-minute tickets. If you're willing to keep your mind open for shows, you can get tickets for about a third of the cost if they're the same day. They just want seat fillers. For instance, when we went to see Penn and Teller, it was supposed to be, I think, $210 a ticket. We went for $50 a ticket because we went to one of those little places. They're all over the place. Take your time, walk around, talk to a few of them. Be careful, because some of them are actually timeshares in disguise. They'll give you a free ticket, but they want to talk to you, and it's a whole day experience. Old Vegas. Oh, hold on. Shows. Shin Lim, the amazing sleight of hand card magician, is now playing in Vegas. If you haven't seen his stuff before, I highly recommend you YouTube it. He is incredible. Really great show, not super expensive. Fremont Street. Do yourself a favor if you're staying in New Vegas or at the station or even at South Point. Go to Fremont Street. It is like nothing else on the planet. Just the canopy covered in videos, and there's live stages everywhere, and there's people ziplining over top, and there's the Heart Attack Cafe, and so much stuff. Like, it is ridiculous how much fun you'll have there, and it's the cheaper place to go get food compared old strip to new strip. You can get dinners and breakfasts super cheap on the old strip because they just want you to come and gamble. Oh, I don't want to leave out my persons who may not be male or who have different orientations. So for the ladies or those who are looking for some sexy men's, I highly recommend, and this comes from recommendations from people I know, the Thunder Down Under and Magic Mike Live. The Thunder Down Under's been out there for a while. The Magic Mike Live is new, but I've heard that the Thunder Down Under is a very, very good show. Haven't seen it. They wouldn't let me go in. I had my budgie smuggler on, and they just wouldn't let me go in. I don't know what's going on. And of course, there's always assorted concerts and stuff. Take the time to enjoy Vegas while you're there. That's a big thing. However, watch your wallets, watch your passports. The area between Fremont Street and New Vegas is not super friendly. It is a bit of actually a higher crime area in experience. That's why the monorail's so good to go from Old Vegas to New Vegas. New Vegas. I highly recommend it. Scoops got married there. It will save you a lot of anxiety because it can get rough, especially at night. In some of the areas between the end of the old strip and the new strip, it can get a little rough there. If you want to see the Heart Attack Cafe, check out the show. Oh yeah, Fluffy, of course, of course. Who doesn't love Fluffy? So that's about it for the Open Championships. Go and have a good time, but if you're going to win, I mean, I've told you everything that you need. It's gonna be, you're gonna want to play a lot of forward roll early. You're gonna want to control the pocket. Other than that, go have a great time. It is, for some, it's a once in a lifetime experience. I know Scoops and I are planning. Scoops has always wanted to go to Louisiana. So I know that he himself is actually already planning now for 2025 for Baton Rouge, which will be so much fun. They used to have the Open Championships there all the time, and it's a great place. So really go and enjoy yourself. Have fun. Enough with the Open Championships. Let's answer some questions. Tons of stuff coming in. Let's see here. YouTube Studio. Okay. Questions. Let's see here. Russell Gilbert. Talking about the payback. You shouldn't try to swing a ball unless you can due to your style of play. Absolutely. If you're not a person who can swing the ball, trying to do it, especially during leagues and stuff, when you should be just trying to score, you might not have a good time. Leave working on stuff like that to your practice time. And when you're there to bowl, just concentrate on getting the most spins you can knock down at a time. The house I bowl is one from Corbin. The house I bowl in it has a big cliff. Other houses not so much. Yeah, unfortunately, some houses you can get a huge cliff with no oil needed on the outside boards now. We're seeing a lot of cliff shots, a lot of over-under. And then if your oil machine's not working right, if your squeegee's bent or it's not spraying right, you can get some weird over-unders, spottiness, all sorts of things. Corbin, I love my big shim. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad you're liking it. Corbin, we've talked to a few times. He was waiting for that to come in. I haven't thrown a lot of I haven't thrown a lot of solids. The Infamous is probably my favorite. It's a good ball. I like it. I have used it as a bit of a later hook ball. Drilled a little bit of the differential out of the fingers, and let that nice strong cover do its job. Yeah, I like that ball. Somebody just asked, what now? I don't know. What now? Joshua. Talking about the eruption. That pearl cover stock, or that cover stock, is the pearl version of the one put on the re-release of the Resurgence. That cover core combo gives traction motion. Yeah, absolutely. It does have a little bit more of a traction to it than it does a traditional pearl ball, which I think, and we talked about this, how until you really change the surface preparation on it, it's much smoother like a traction ball. And then when you shine it up or rough it up, you can get a little bit more angularity or a little bit more roll out of it. See, the problem is I keep answering questions, and I shouldn't do that because then they disappear off my sheet. I'm really bad for that. I gotta go to my other sheet. How many of you got to see that video by Ron Hicklin this week? Talking about softness, where they softened the ball up. They had a purple hammer at 70, almost 74, and then one taken down to like 61 and or 64, and how it hooked like 10 boards more just because of softness. Imagine that. A ball with a bigger footprint hooking more. That's the second time that review has been asked for in that way. Yep. Oh, I see. There's a Scotty Thompson. Hi, Scotty Thompson. Anybody watching WrestleMania coming up? I don't know if I'm going to watch it this year. I'm really digging AEW more than I think I have ever in the past. Ooh, here's a good one. Somebody asked, do you have to have tilt for the ball to have energy to go through the pins? It's a good question. There's lots of low tilt bowlers out there. And you don't. You actually don't want any tilt when the ball goes through the pins. You want it to be rolling. So all of its forces are going forward rather than on any angles to the direction that the ball is rolling in. So you want the ball to roll, lose tilt, to go through the pins. If you have low tilt, however, the ball can roll too early. We talked about the ball needing to roll about 5 feet before the pins. Well, if it rolls 30 feet before the pins, then it's not going to have any energy left. It's going to hit like a dead fish, or a marshmallow covered in fish, or like a turducken of like a turkey with a fish and a marshmallow. That's disgusting. So you have to lose tilt, otherwise it'll affect the way that your ball deflects in the pocket. If a ball still has tilt, it's still skidding or hooking, so it doesn't have a grip on the lane, so it can literally bounce off the pins. And that's when you see the ball hit and go a different direction. Say, out over the 9-pin, or I've seen a ball hit the pocket and hit the 10-pin. It deflected so badly. Like, it's out there. It can happen. So no, you don't need tilt for the ball to go through the pins, but you need tilt for the ball to get down the lane. Trying to see if there's any other big ones here. A lot of ones we've covered before. I might watch WrestleMania if Cody Rhodes shows up. Yeah, a lot of the other questions are things we've covered before. Cool.
Hi there, and
hello. I am Franz. I am Mr. Interesting. It is very nice to meet you. Let's see here. Tom Doherty has a bonus with a giant pinky hole. Yes! Someone sent me this one. This is a really cool question. Okay. We're going to cover this two ways. First of all, anyone can have a pinky hole. And Tom mentioned that by having it so large, it kept him from increasing his rev rate. The more hand you can have attached to the ball, the more you can spin it off. If he has that pinky hole tight, like an insert, it allows him to hit the ball harder. It's not what he wants. It's an option for people out there who want to add a little bit of hand if they're severely rev deficient. But what Tom is using it for is very cheeky. He has made it as big as he can, and it has two functions. One, by being loose on his finger, it allows him to grip the ball just a bit so he can spin it a little bit more. Gets him a little bit more distance and a little bit sharper reaction that he can create. It also gives him a very large weight hole. Totally legal, 100%, because his finger's using it for gripping. But as soon as it leaves his hands, it is, for better or worse, a P1 hole. So it's going to reduce a little bit of the flare up front. So that ball's actually going to get down the lane a little bit easier still, with more energy down the lane to hook. So it's given him something that he can take a little bit of a weaker ball, say we might see in our late hook ball, and created an opportunity to make more shape with it than anyone else who is just a two-finger bowler. It's a brilliant stroke. I don't know why more people aren't trying things like this, putting in the extra holes. I mean, because, look, you can drill that pinky hole 4 inches deep if you want to. You can make it an inch around as long as it doesn't crack your ball and the weights are right. You can really change the way your ball rolls. I think he's brilliant. And he just loves stirring the pot. Just stirring the pot. Southpaw. It's the left side. How's the left side playing out there? So the left side is going to be a little bit different. For the lefties, this is actually a really great question. For lefties at the Open Championship, your burn ball and your late hook ball are not going to be as important. Because there aren't as many of you and you can't generally get on, you're not going to have, I mean, if you can get a team of lefties, you probably destroy the place because you'll never have to move. But as a lefty by himself, you're not going to have someone to break down the lanes for you, so you're going to need those big ASIMs and the urethanes more. So you might end up more along the lines of, say, your big ASIM, your benchmark ball, a ball up, and then 2 or 3 urethane. Like a couple of purples, or a purple and a pink and a short pin pink, or something like that, because you're going to have to play a lot of surface and keep the ball really in front of you unless you have a few lefties playing with you. You're not going to create the friction by yourself to need that burn ball. You're not going to create the friction, most likely, to really need that late hook ball. So it gives you some more options. I know at least one lefty who went out there who took 6 urethane balls with him. 6. 2 pinks, 1 shined, 1 not. A couple of purples and a couple of blacks. That was it. Lots of surface. It's left side can be tough. I honestly think if somebody could get together a team of good lefties who can play in the same area, they could probably wreck the place. There's also not really a track at all at the stadium, so you don't have to worry about a ton of early hooks, so you can really lay on the surface as a lefty and control the pocket. I want to try it on the other side. Oh! Nick wants to put a index hole. Not everybody can do that. Unfortunately, us low tilt players who track beside their middle finger can't use one of those holes because we just roll it all the time. But Scoops has a much higher tilt than I do, so he could definitely do that. I like wrestling back in the day. Stone Cold, yeah, Stone Cold's coming back at this WrestleMania. Yeah, he's gonna... You know what, brother? I'm gonna stomp a mud hole in your butt, and then I'm gonna drink all my Steve Weisers. Yeah, he's gonna kick Kevin Owens' butt. Lefty with all urethane. It wasn't even Packy, though he probably will. Let's be honest, he probably will. Or he might take 5 urethane and a plastic ball. No, it wasn't Packy, but I could believe it. I could believe he'd do it. Oh, I forgot one more place. I forgot to go to Reddit. And you, please don't forget to go to Reddit. If you're watching this, it's where we're trying to put all of our new release episodes up there. So if you have any questions, anything you want to discuss, it's much easier for you to have it all in one place rather than YouTube. And if you just don't like using YouTube, it's on Reddit, so you can share it and do whatever you want. Also, Reddit doesn't have the same kind of mods on it, so if you want to tell me what you think, you most certainly can. May not listen to you, but you can tell me whatever you want. And that's at r/Laneside Reviews. Nope, no new questions there. All right. I think then, folks, that brings us to about the end of the show. I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. It was awesome having you. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you to all the new subscribers and viewers. Don't forget, I didn't want to forget mentioning this. I just uploaded a whole host of new awesome things for our subscribers here on Twitch. We have a whole bunch of new emoticons. Let me see if I can tell you what we got here. Viewer rewards, emoticons. We have LSR Bowling Family, Cool 10-Pin Bro. We have the animated GIF of dun 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 on there for you to use. We've got a new one called Back to the Pocket. So there's a whole bunch of really fun ones on there. If you subscribe to us on Twitch, don't forget though, you can also find us the next day after these shows on YouTube. We always put the replay up the very next day so that you can watch it. Not everybody likes Twitch. So you can find us there at Laneside Reviews on the YouTubes, or Facebook, Laneside Reviews, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, I still think we have Scoops on Bumble. Goodness, what else do we have on here? Instagram, Reddit, TikTok, Facebook, all over the place. Just look up hashtag TEAMLSR or Laneside Reviews, and you'll pretty much find us everywhere. Or you can just go to lanesidereviews@live.com. Once again, I want to remind everybody, I put up the programming note, we won't have a stream this Thursday. I know it's terrible. We won't have one. We want to have a chance for this one to catch some traction, let everyone have a chance to watch it. We're also taking the time this week to finish up all of our new release reviews. So rather than try to rush things and try to get a stream in there and not have something that's good for you, we want to make sure we take our time and deliver exactly what you want. Bowling ASMR. I'm going to surface my ball now. I really like my Radical Spy plastic spare ball bowling ball. I'm glad you do, Scotty. Thanks for joining us. Trying to remember if I forgot anything. New balls next time. We went over Arsenal stuff. I think we covered it all. I just don't want to say goodbye to you guys. I love you so much. You're like the family I never wanted. Now, you all are all awesome, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this show every episode. It makes it so great for myself. It makes it great for us as a sport to share this information so we can all get better together. So, unless anyone has any questions in the chat there, I think that's going to be it. I think we're all done. If you have any show ideas or something you want to see covered on an episode, please make sure you send it to lanesidereviews@live.com. And until next time, guys, make sure that you keep the ball in the lane, knock down pins, have fun. We'll see you laneside. Damn it, I lost the button again. Where the hell is that outro button?
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a show. So until next time, guys, we'll see you laneside.